Google Ads are harder to scale than Facebook ads, and e-com brand owners ask me all the time what they can do to break through this invisible ceiling that they might see at 100,000 or 200,000 a month or whatever it might be for you. And in today's video, I will explain our Ignite framework that we use here at Cartlift to scale brands to 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, 7 figures, or in this example right here, $1.8 million per month using Google Ads and nothing else. Of course, these brands run other platforms and other channels too, but we use this framework and many details, of course, to really scale Google Ads hard. So with that being said, in today's video, I want to cover 3 different sort of aspects of the framework. The first one is what I call removing the brakes, which is an initial cleanup to give your account a real ROAS boost, okay? Then, second of all, what I call oiling the machine, where we focus on the low-hanging fruits, get a profitable setup done that gets you to 100, 200, 300K per month, depending on your niche, of course. And then ultimately, and that's where many brands struggle, igniting the engine, which is omni-channel scaling for 500K per month, $1 million per month, and more. So I will go through all of these step by step. The second and the third are probably most important here because removing the brakes is something that still is extremely important, but that is covered in a bunch of videos in some ways. But in this video, I want to have it all condensed in one single strategy. So there is a myth that Google Ads aren't scalable and only good for like the ultra low-hanging fruits, brand sales, retargeting your Facebook ads traffic, right? But Meta is often bigger, but many brands can be scaled to 6 figures or multiple 6 or even 7 figures per month on Google Ads as well. The search volume and demand is often bigger than you think, and most people look at these ultra low specific keywords only, and then they think, okay, I'm probably capped at like 50,000 per month, right? So with that being said, let's talk about the first section, which is removing the brakes. So it is impossible to scale to multiple 6 figures or 7 figures while carrying waste in your account, 10%, 20%, 30% or more, right? So because of that, in the beginning, there should be a 1 to 4 week process depending on the size of your account to make sure that all the waste is cut. And this is exactly what we do when we onboard a new client, right? Especially when they have a high ad spend. I've seen cases where brands spending 100,000 per month on Google, 30,000 of that is wasted, 50,000 of that is completely wasted, right? And the rest isn't spent in the best possible way. So some of the things, and this is just a selection of activities, right? And there are many more, but I want to illustrate the process here. In this one-time effort that may take 1 to 4 weeks, you want to make sure that your tracking, for example, is 100% accurate, right? Use server-side tracking, use enhanced conversions, and so on and so forth. Then make sure that you import Google Analytics audiences that you can reuse in Google Ads, that you can post-process in Google Ads. Make sure that you analyze your Google Ads traffic with Hotjar to find out how people interact with your site, because we give our clients tailored conversion rate optimization advice as well, right? Use observation audiences so that you can learn which customers, which audience groups are performing. You will need them later on, as I will talk about in this video as well. Then you need negative keyword lists, and ideally you need multiple of them, and you need hundreds and eventually thousands of negative keywords if you want to squeeze out every little, profitable dollar from your account. You need a one-time feed optimization project where you make sure that everything is clean, and then, as we will discuss in a second, do this on a somewhat regular basis. You want to organize your products with custom labels, right? So that you're not just advertising random categories in your shopping ads, or that you're not just doing some random stuff, excluding some bestsellers and that's it, but you want to keep things organized so that you can quickly create a new campaign with only a certain product type. And you want to cut and rearrange your underperformers. Like for example, product isn't working, cut it off, reduce the bids, create another campaign, have one campaign that is basically a pool for all those underperformers so that you can give the real bestsellers a big push. Those are just some examples, and there are of course many more, but I want to illustrate the process of cutting the waste initially. And if you are not working with an agency, if you're not working with someone else, of course you should do this probably now for your brand in, as I said, this 1 to 4 week time frame, right? Then optimization should always be a constant work in progress. So let's say you have done this full one-time optimization, then let's say every 2 weeks or whatever, you should do some negative keyword research. You should iterate your feed, and at least for your bestsellers, try new titles, images, and so on. You should rearrange your products and on a regular basis to see if they, if it performs better if you, for example, channel all your bestsellers in one campaign. You want to split test new ads when it comes to Google search. Try different angles, try different ad copy, try different wordings for your ads to maximize the click-through rate while maintaining a good conversion rate, and so on and so forth. Last but not least, removing underperformers is a constant work in progress too. You'd be surprised how many shopping ads or PMAX campaigns I see where they're carrying a product, spending thousands and thousands of dollars on it, and it gets lost somewhere in the nitty-gritty details, but the product is carried, really reducing the ROAS. So that was just a very quick, fast overview on the first step of cutting the waste. And with that being said, let's jump into the second section, which is oiling the machine. So what you can see here is one of our clients' dashboard sorted by the campaigns with highest search impression share. When you basically oiling the machine means that you want to get a setup going that is profitable, focusing on your lowest hanging fruits. You shouldn't worry yet about things like display ads or demand gen or very, very broad campaigns and things like that. You should be focused on those campaigns and those actions that really drive profitable volume, right? On a somewhat small scale, 50, 100, 200K, whatever it might be per month. Aim for an 80% search impression share or more for your key shopping and search campaigns. So for this client right there, you can see that those are the shopping and search campaigns with our biggest search impression share. We have this one, which is kind of like a branded shopping, 100% search impression share. You will see that very, very rarely. But then you have others with 98, 91, 85, 85, 81, 79. Those are our most important product lines where we have like literally the best option for these search terms, right? For the products that we're selling there. And those are our key campaigns. There are many, many, many more campaigns in that account, including PMAX, where you don't see the search impression share here in this main dashboard. But those are our key campaigns that carry the account in terms of, profitability and also to a degree volume, even though our volume here comes from other campaigns too. Then run a dynamic search or DSA campaign, especially if you have a larger catalog with, let's say, 1,000 products or more. Here you can see a set of dynamic search ad groups for a client. All these are different ad groups on I think it was a 14-day time frame, spending 13,000 euros, about $15,000, where we do all kinds of things, right? The top one is like a broader dynamic search ad group. The others are more specific. But the point is, dynamic search for many e-commerce brand is a fairly low-hanging fruit and something that you should definitely do early on. I would say probably after your first set of shopping campaigns, after your most relevant search campaigns, possibly a brand campaign, possibly a little bit of PMAX, DSA should definitely be the next thing that you are engaging in, right? The next activity that you should be focused on. So DSA, super important, super powerful, and in most campaigns, in most accounts, absolutely worth doing. If you use PMAX, segment by product category or best performers and weak products, right? So here, random screenshot, 3 different asset groups focusing on similar products, but not exactly the same. You can see how some of the preview images are basically the same, like this, this, and this, and this one. But then with all the assets, we have a lot of differences too. What I see across the board is that there are many brands that have a PMAX campaign, let's say with 5 different asset groups, and literally all they do is same assets everywhere, almost the same audience everywhere, almost the same products everywhere, and all they are testing is basically a very, very small nuance in their audience, right? So let's say one asset group gets 3 in-market audiences and the other gets like 2 in-market and a custom segment or something like that. Of course, there is some point to be made that audience testing makes sense in PMAX too, and we do it every now and then as well. But the main thing that you want to test with PMAX is clearly and definitely products, product categories, product subcategories, or as I said, best performers versus weak products, so that you can say, okay, you have one asset group dedicated to your best performers. By the way, an even better setup is usually to have one best performing PMAX campaign and another PMAX campaign for your worst or weak performers, so that you can adjust the target ROAS goal. But for the sake of this, you can also segment on the asset group level, but I would rather do it on the campaign level. But the point is, you want to have a strategic and useful structure here. It makes no sense to go with a tiny, tiny little change in audience, because guess what? PMAX will expand on your audiences anyway, right? So the audience that you set initially for an asset group is not the one that PMAX will or Google will use all the time. It's just the seed audience, and then Google will move beyond that very, very quickly. So that's why there is no point in just doing this very small granular setup where there is almost no difference in your asset groups. So those were some of the key points for your most low-hanging fruits, right? The focus of that is actually on igniting the engine. So just as a little recap, in order to focus on the low-hanging fruits, you go with the most important shopping, you go with the most important search, you do dynamic search, you do a little bit of PMAX if necessary, and this is usually what gets you to 100K to 200K per month. The reason this isn't more granular is because I have so many videos on this channel where I talk about your initial shopping setup, your initial PMAX setup, your initial search setup, so I didn't want to include everything here, but rather give you the full detailed roadmap of what comes first, what comes second, what comes third, and our sort of thought process when doing that, okay? So when we talk about igniting the engine, you want to then start with scaling broader keywords that are not 100% relevant necessarily, but have lots of volume. So here, this is actually the client that I've shown you like 5 slides ago, where I showed you the biggest search impression share campaigns. What you can see here is a set of campaigns that is much, much broader, which obviously means we have a way lower search impression share too. But you can see that those few campaigns contribute to a total budget of 47,000 euros. I think also 2-week time frame or maybe 30-day. I didn't, check on the time frame for all of the screenshots that I took, but they were all 30 days at absolute most. Okay, so you can see we are limited by budget for a whole bunch of these campaigns, limited by search volume. Okay, 50% search impression share anyway. As you can see, this campaign right here and this campaign are the biggest conversion drivers right there. And what you want to do here is you want to, as I said, go for broader categories that are not ideal to start with when you're just beginning with your account, but the moment that you get consistent conversions, as I said, the moment you hit 50, 100, 200K per month consistently, you don't only want to focus on your absolute low-hanging fruits, you want to go beyond that. So where do we get these keywords from? For example, search term report from shopping, right? Search term report from search. If you use broad match, because then you will get more queries beyond your absolute lowest hanging fruits. If you have an exact match search campaign, of course, there isn't that much to learn from it, because then you are basically just getting the exact queries that you want to rank for. But with broad, you will get more ideas. Dynamic search is also a very good source of new interesting keywords that you can then put into a separate sort of dedicated search campaign that is not as relevant but scalable. So the idea behind these campaigns is that normally the ROAS is a little bit lower than with your key search campaigns, the ones that target your main keywords, but because they're broader and more scalable, you can, as you see here, get them to 47,000 euros in monthly or bi-weekly cost or something like that. Then make sure that you find promising audiences from your past campaigns that you can then use for push channels and very broad search. This is a selection of audiences that we have in one of our accounts, 93,000 euros on a 30-day time frame, where basically we look at, okay, how do these different audiences perform? We look both into our own data, so retargeting data, etc., but also in things like, in-market audiences, segments, etc., so that we can then understand how do these audiences perform, which gives us a head start when we want to try, for example, a demand gen campaign or a YouTube campaign, or maybe what we also sometimes do, a layered search campaign, where what's a layered search campaign? You have a very broad search campaign with broad match keywords, very high volume, but you layer this with audiences that are performing very well. So you don't target keywords only, but you target a mix of keywords and audiences. And this can give you a head start when entering a very broad keyword space. And eventually you might not need those audiences anymore, but they are super valuable once you have spent, a few 10,000s worth of dollars in your account in these audiences combined, so that you can actually understand what's going on, which audiences are most powerful. Sometimes there isn't like a clear winner, or there isn't really an audience that stands out, but most of the time you will have a cluster, a certain selection of audiences that does very, very well, that you can then reuse. One of the ways that you can reuse them, just as I said, is, for example, YouTube. Here, another client project, using YouTube ads to, first of all, scale your bestsellers directly, and second of all, to get a huge retargeting audience. Now, I get it, YouTube ads isn't for everyone. If you have a product that is not very visual, if you don't have the capacity to get video ads done, then it's also pretty hard, of course. But even if you just start with your Facebook ads performers, right? The best way to start with YouTube ads is to get your Facebook ads, Facebook video ads, and test them on YouTube. Most of the time, there is some overlap in terms of what works. Of course, our best YouTube campaigns are always native on YouTube, right? Meaning we have produced ads specifically for the YouTube platform because it works differently than Facebook, but you can start by focusing on the lowest hanging fruits, reusing your meta best performers. So first, as I said, scale the bestsellers directly, meaning you pick, let's say, your key product, your most important product, you send people from YouTube to either the product page or ideally something like an advertorial, a dedicated landing page, and so on and so forth, where it's very, very focused. And that is basically the cold traffic option. And then the second, though, is, well, technically it's also cold traffic, but the main purpose of building a huge retargeting audience is that you get a YouTube campaign going that just casts a super wide net. You want to get as many people as possible to view this video. And then you do retargeting, whether it's on display or another YouTube campaign, or you can also reuse it for search if the audience is large enough, so that you basically, especially if you have a really high budget or if you really want to maximize your volume across the board and you are fine with some delay of 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, right? This is really next level stuff where you say, okay, you want to use Google in a similar way as you use Facebook, and you don't only think about the immediate sale, which is what you are focused on here in this first aspect, but you're also playing the long-term game with this, wider audiences and so on and so forth. So there are a few campaign types that are worth trying when scaling really hard, and those are competitor search campaigns capturing their buying intent traffic, especially if your brand is somewhat recognized, which typically when you make like a few $100,000 per month, it really is, right? Then it makes sense to steal some traffic from the competitors. We do this with most of our high volume clients, and those campaigns can sometimes spend, $15K per month or something, giving you a pretty decent return. Of course, you cannot get your search impression share close to 100% because your competitors will always rank much easier and much cheaper, but especially if there are many of them, you can basically grab a nice cut from all of them. Then, very broad dynamic search campaigns targeting all your sites. We talked about dynamic search being important early on, but there is also a very good case to be made that a very broad dynamic search campaign without many restrictions is powerful when you are really scaling to, get more keyword ideas, target more products, and so on and so forth. Then demand gen for your lowest hanging fruit, similar as with YouTube, right? Demand gen is typically a bit easier because image creatives are easier to produce than YouTube videos. And even though it's just a relatively new campaign type still, and we don't have crazy amounts of ad spend there yet, we do see first real results spending $300, $400, $500 a day, sometimes a little bit more than that profitably. I admit that we're mostly focused still on shopping, search, PMAX, and I think overall we also still spend more on YouTube than on demand gen, but it's definitely growing, right? And this is great for products that have been proven, where you say, this is a bestseller on both Google and Facebook, now we want to take it to the next level. High budget PMAX with multiple asset groups, regular asset tweaks, and large audiences. That's an interesting one. So PMAX, I know some people love it, some people hate it. We use it in about, I would say, 70% of the accounts right now, but we see more and more cases where we transition from PMAX back to shopping, search, demand gen, etc. I feel personally that if you have a set of super optimized shopping, search, demand gen, YouTube campaigns, you utilize all of them, you really optimize each campaign type as much as possible, you tend to get better results than the one big cocktail that is PMAX. At least when you make sure that this is adjusted for brand terms. Because if your PMAX converts brand traffic, of course, it will always outperform the rest. But if you adjust it properly, then usually the optimized setup does better. But of course, this doesn't mean that PMAX campaigns can't work very well. Also, PMAX adjusted for brand can produce a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ROAS at a very high volume. But I just wanted to make sure that if you use PMAX with a very high budget, you need to give it regular tweaks and tests, not every 2 days, because that will definitely hurt it. But if you have the capacity to get nice assets done, then it should be part of your strategy. And also, as we discussed, YouTube ads for key target audiences, right? Make sure that you get your retargeting audiences filled, make sure that you try to get some immediate conversions from YouTube, and then play the long-term game. So, just as a little recap, right? Initially, first step, you want to make sure that there is low waste in your account, because if you carry the waste, if you carry some excess fat in your Google Ads account, you will never be able to scale to maximum heights because your ROAS will diminish if you have the waste in your account. So this should be a first priority. Then, whoops, we got a little issue with the presentation. All right, of course, the volume comes third and not second. So we look at profitable fundamentals second, right? We say, okay, what is the setup that can get us to a good 100,000, 200,000 per month consistently at a ROAS that we're very happy with, before we then go the extra mile and go for volume, which typically, not always, but typically comes with lower ROAS. But if you make $1 million a month from Google versus 300K, you are typically willing to give up a little bit of ROAS. But of course, obviously, it still has to be profitable. Now, all of what I just mentioned, we do with a whole bunch of brands, and this is just a very small selection of them, right? Some of them doing 5, 6, 7 figures per month, and yeah, it's basically a process that can be repeated over and over again. It doesn't make sense for every brand. Let me be very clear here too, right? Not every brand can be scaled to $1 million. Not every brand can be scaled to 300K. Not every brand can make use of YouTube and demand gen, and so on and so forth. But generally, it's a strategy that can be applied in many, many, many cases, and we do it all day long with our roundabout $1 million in monthly ad spend that is growing very fast. And if you have an e-commerce brand, ideally making 50K per month or more across the board, doesn't have to be Google Ads, but across the board, then I invite you to visit cartlift.co and claim, first of all, your profit roadmap. So instead of jumping on one of those, sales calls with you that no one likes, I want to give you a personalized one-on-one Loom video game plan that I make just for you, where I look at your brand and I share some ideas with you in terms of how you can grow it. You don't have to share Google Ads access for that. You just have to share your store URL. So if you make more than 50K a month, which translates to like 600K per year with your e-com brand, and you are stuck, or you hit an invisible ceiling, or you simply don't want, or you are not able to scale your Google Ads to the next level, make sure that you check this out. I will produce a roadmap for you, and then we can discuss whether it makes sense for us to handle your ads, take them to the next level, whatever this might mean for you in a ROAS-friendly way. So with that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please leave a like, please subscribe for more Google Ads content. Let me know in the comments what the biggest volume was that you have ever scaled your Google Ads account, where you are right now. It would be very interesting to know. And with that being said, yeah, I look forward to see you in the next video again. Thank you very much for watching, and take care. Bye-bye.